pleasure of introducing to you Mr. Marek Skulimowski from Kosciuszko Foundation. Hello, Washington, DC.
Hello, I'm in Washington actually in our office, or our headquarters in New York.
That's wonderful, and thank you for finding the time for us in your busy schedule. I do have to start with something that every Australian needs to learn, and that is the pronunciation of your foundation. So our highest peak is called Mount Kosciuszko. Everybody pronounces it Kosciuszko. Please tell us how to pronounce it well.
Kosciuszko.
That's it, Kosciuszko.
Kosciuszko.
That's both easy and difficult.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you can divide into three steps. Kosciuszko. Kosciuszko. That's maybe this way it's easier. I remember watching a TV spot about 2 years ago when there was the opening of Kosciuszko Bridge between Queens and Brooklyn, New York. So I remember Governor Cuomo that was trying to pronounce the name correctly, but then he turned back into the American style.
Well, never.
It was so difficult. So.
That's right. So, but pronunciation of the name is one thing. The man itself is another. Actually, what I find, through my work is that not many people know who he was. So, in the context of your foundation, which does amazing work with Polish Americans and to preserve the links between Poland and America, tell us who was Kosciuszko just briefly, but more to the point, what does your foundation do, and what is your foundation all about?
Yeah, so briefly about the Kosciuszko, people may be surprised that we took the name of Tadeusz Kosciuszko, in Polish Tadeusz Kosciuszko, as our patron. But actually the foundation was established exactly at the 150th anniversary of his death. So that was like a kind of tribute to a Polish American, or American of Polish descent, as some Americans prefer to say. He spent a couple of years in the United States, so he was absolutely treated like a fellow American by most of the military leadership back then. The most significant work that he's done for the U.S. military was to defend the United States independence, and he was the one to design the strategic place near Saratoga that the American forces managed to defeat the British forces. Then no one knows about it, but actually West Point should be called Fort Kosciuszko because he was an architect of, this military strategic architect to design this place. And then he designed more forts in both Carolinas. And of course, he was honored by General Washington back then. And later on, he was one of the main heroes. The first presidents of the United States absolutely paid tribute to him. He was given free land in the United States. Actually, the land that he given to former slaves. He was the first one. That was a very unpopular move back then. But coming back to the Kosciuszko Foundation, so we decided to take this name as the name was very recognizable. And the Kosciuszko Foundation was established by Szczepan Mierzwa. In the United States, he changed his name into Stephen Mizwa, a Polish immigrant from Galicia, Podkarpackie. Right now, it's actually near the place where I was born. That's a coincidence. I discovered he was raised in the village where actually my mom was raised, in a small village, Vashnia. I found it after I was elected the president of the Kosciuszko Foundation. It's a complete coincidence. And from the very beginning, actually, Szczepan Mizwa was one of was children from quite a big family. So he was the only one that managed to emigrate to the United States. He started schools, and of course, he was working at the same time in the evenings. And he managed to graduate from Amherst College, which is in Amherst, Massachusetts, and Harvard. And having that experience, how difficult it is for an immigrant from Poland to to complete all of the essential steps of the education and to achieve something in the new land, he decided to establish like a scholarship committee at the beginning. It was in 1922. And 3 years later, with the help of his American friends, rich American friends, he established a foundation, which was registered in the state of New York. And then what happened later, next, it was very difficult, especially after the First World War, before the Second World War, to fundraise. But he managed to send a number of Americans to Polish universities to learn more about Poland and to support a number of Polish Americans here to pay for the colleges or universities. And that was till the Second World War.
And Marek, would you say that volunteerism and that kind of civic duty approach to your community is something that that's very much alive in the Polish community of today in the US?
Yes, it is, I would say, because otherwise the kind of, initiative, maybe at the beginning it was really difficult. Whenever I read his memoirs, it was really difficult because Polish immigrants were working really hard. There were no like 2 or 3 generations of Polish Americans. That was like the beginning of this one of the biggest waves of Polish immigration at the beginning of the 20th century. So in the first generation of immigrants, it's always difficult to support this additional, it's like an additional expense, to be honest. But another generations are more willing to be supportive of such, like charitable organizations or foundations or different kinds of non-profit.
And Marek, your initiatives are, there's quite a number of things you do, but really the aim of the foundation is to connect Poland, Polish diaspora with America. And you mentioned earlier, I found that interesting that you say that some people consider themselves Polish Americans, others are American Poles. What do you specifically do in terms of, so I know one of the things you do is scholarships, so if you could briefly take us through it. But you also have a very important and a very unique, I don't know what to call it, a system or a way of actually taking over organizations that can, Polish organizations that can no longer run or they want extra support. Could you maybe explain to us what that's about?
So of course, just to be short, we just build bridges between cultural, educational bridges between Poland and the United States. In most of the cases, we invite Polish scholars to spend some time in the United States at one of the renowned universities or research centers. This program is called Exchange to the United States. We spend nearly $500,000 every year for that program, and we invite between 30 to 40 Polish scholars. There was a number of well-known Polish scholars like Balcerowicz, for example, couple of film directors, the one that was created, Vabank, Juliusz Machulski, for example.
Yes.
Machulski, yes.
Very famous.
There was a long list of scholars from each field of science in general and humanities, so and medical schools. And also we offer scholarships, that's what I mentioned, for Polish Americans living here for the colleges, universities. We spend nearly like about $300,000 every year. So it's about a hundred of scholarships between $2,000 to $10,000, more or less. We also run a program which is called Teaching English in Poland, which we invite Americans to spend some time in Poland and visit Poland at the same time, learn more about Poland, and teach Polish teenagers English. It's by immersion. Immersion means that they spend like 2-3 weeks together all the time, and the only way of communication is English language. So that's our third program. We also have quite a big content of our cultural activities. So because one of the missions of the Kosciuszko Foundation is promoting Polish culture in the United States. So we spend nearly a million every year. Of course, this year is really difficult, so we use Zoom most of the time. But we organize events, lectures, support Polish events promoting Poland, Polish literature, Polish culture, music, whatever you think, we organize. Polish film, for example. So we promote Polish publications like books or even research papers. So that's also a part of our mission. So that's more or less. You also mentioned that sometimes Polish diaspora organizations that are not able to survive anymore turn to us for help. Of course, we are not able to help financially, but one of the solutions, if an organization is about to dissolve, we offer, okay, if you have any money left or you have some real estate, just sell it and set up an educational fund, scholarship fund. So let's say an X organization is dissolved, so they can establish like an X organization fund, scholarship fund at the Kosciuszko Foundation with certain restrictions, and we'll follow this restrictions in the future. So for example, they want to have scholarships offered for medical school students, for example. Why not? We can do it. So through the history, it has happened quite a few times.
I think, Marek, what you described is a massive portfolio. I was just listening, and I've been to visit your office, and you've explained this to me, but now listening to it again, I just cannot imagine how much work it is. And of course, you mentioned COVID and the way that we had to, what's the word, pivot and be agile and all of that. And we have been watching your webinars, and they bring amazing value. But I think what resonates with me here in Australia really well is the fact that you can preserve a diaspora's name and a diaspora's or organization's inheritance, if you like, where they're able to give it to somebody that they trust, and they know that what will happen with that money or that real estate will be changing people's lives. Because essentially what you're talking about is helping people to reconnect with their heritage and learn more about who they are as people. And there's different ways that you can do it. And clearly what your programs do is have a very wide range of activities and really, high value, high production value events. So, for example, you had just a few days ago, you had a couple of concerts and things like that. So, how do you pivot? Like, what did you have to do when COVID hit, and you knew that you won't be able to organize some of the fundraising events? I've attended a couple, and I know they're simply amazing, really well organized, well attended, just really amazing events. What did you have to do to change things and to sustain, the pace and I guess the energy that comes with running such an organization?
It starts from our founding fathers, to be honest. From the very beginning, the foundation was set up properly and was working with great and generous people through the decades. We're turning nearly 100. You are turning 100 in 5 years. So now, of course, we have grown to the size that we can employ 12 people here in the United States, an additional 3 in Poland. So that's like it's essential, because I know volunteers are wonderful, but the time is limited. They need to make money to keep up their families. They have some other obligations, life obligations. So you need to have paid employees, and just like full-time employees. So for the years, we've managed to grow to such a quite a big organization. So now I have a culture section, development, which is like a fundraising section, the foundation, administration, and those people who are responsible for receiving emails and calls, which is like quite a lot of them, because since we operate extensively, we also receive an extensive feedback from people, and these are those who are have like just like very simple questions: how to buy this or that book, and some others want to offer their money to support our programs to continue, because they were fascinated by one of our Zoom session or concert, or they met someone who is a scientist supported by the Kosciuszko Foundation. So that's how it works. The more you work, the more you receive in return from generous people around.
And Marek, talk to us about leadership, because you're talking about this as if it just happened by magic, but of course it didn't. It happened thanks to you and your board. And I can see that, because, you know, like running a business, I know exactly how much it takes to get it to the point you're talking about. But what did you have to do to not just to create that vision with your board, but deliver it? Because, you know, ambitious plans one thing, but to actually you know, sit here proudly and tell us about what you've done is another. So what drives Marek? What happens? What happens every morning when you get up? And because this is clearly not just a job for you, it's a passion. So I'd like you to inspire us and tell us how that happens for someone like you. And you're obviously very proud, and so are we, of what you and your board has built, because it's such an amazing institution. If I could get you to talk on leadership and leadership skills that you have, but also more to the point that your foundation helps people develop, because clearly your educational programs are about that, and your scholarships are about that.
You know, it's leadership. It's like, I would say, I spent some time in business, so if it's a foundation or a business entity, it's based on a very simple rule. There is like a CEO and a board over it, and it needs to work hand in hand, the CEO with the board. So we have on the board of the foundation, we have very well educated and well established people in the United States. It's just like, so they have a lot of experience running their businesses, their private foundations. So they know how it should operate. There may be some tension about the vision of the foundation, but in general, it helps me because I learn a lot from my board. And I have also some experience. I was working for a governmental institution, then for business, now non-profit. So if you put that mix all together, it's you can squeeze out quite a lot. So the relationship between the CEO and the board, so in this case, it's the president and executive director, and the board, it's very important. We have board committees, so the people responsible for the certain things. It's like scholarship committee. So these are scientists and academics on our board, and they usually help me to organize these scholarship interviews, for example. I have audit committee, those people who control if I spend money correctly. So that's also very important. It's finance committee, because we have an endowment nearly $40 million at this point. So it needs to be invested well and properly, and in a rather conservative way, because years ago, people gave us the money. So we don't overinvest or invest recklessly, let's say. So that's very important. You have our trustees got some expertise. Those who are from they run their businesses, investments or whatever, they are in finance committee to help us to invest money properly, or we usually do it through an investment firm, because we are not allowed to invest, to make that decisions by ourselves. But still, their help is it's an immense help. Without this almost daily communication, it wouldn't be possible to achieve such a success, because the Kosciuszko Foundation is a success.
And I wanted to say that, because I do travel a lot, and I have been involved in Polish diaspora organizations here in Australia, and I think you are a shining example, a success story, and one that people can take inspiration from. And could you give us maybe a typical profile of someone that gets your so what I was going to say is that you've just recently released 100 scholarships. So what's a typical person that would qualify for your scholarship? Are they younger people, older people? What happens?
usually the scholarship is connected with the restriction. So we have, let's say we have like more or less 100 different scholarship funds. So money donated by someone with certain restrictions that I mentioned for humanities, science, medicine, whatever. And there are also additional restrictions for undergraduate student and graduate student, or only for graduate students. And most of our funds are for graduate students. So, which means we offer most of our scholarships for graduate students because we need to follow the restrictions. That's very important.
Right.
And so we don't offer that many scholarships for undergraduates, but also we have some postgraduate students. So I mean, like those who wants to get a PhD. So there's a certain amount of money. Also have restricted scholarship for scientists coming from Poland to the United States, and only for Polish scientists to study in the United States. So I cannot spend this money for Polish Americans in the United States. So that's why I need to have a few more people to organize these different types of scholarship funds, and of course control these funds that we don't. Because I can only spend the amount I make through the year. So if this whatever is profit during a year. So let's say if a fund is like $1 million, I can make approximately 5%, which is $50,000. So this is the only amount I can spend. I still keep $1 million. So I cannot go, as we call it, underwater. So that's the way how the foundation will survive for years. Because I don't eat up the money in the funds. I just spend whatever I make.
What you can afford. And I think lots of checks and balances and a very sustainable model, essentially, where you are very, well, frugality maybe is not the right word to use here, but certainly a very sustainable, very controlled way of making sure that your programs are delivered in the way that your founders intended. And tell us about membership, because I know that on your website, which we will put up shortly, you can join as a member or you can donate money. How can we support you? Because it is such a unique and a wonderful initiative. So if people, particularly Americans, if they want to support you, how can they do that? And how can they get involved?
Yeah, they coming from the membership. We are a membership organization because there are a lot of people who benefited from our scholarship. Those who wants to follow our programs, to keep up with our communication. So you can join join our membership, joining the Kosciuszko Foundation as a member. And there are different levels of the membership. If you go to our website, which is the kf.org, or just use the Kosciuszko Foundation New York, and you can join the membership then. And of course, if you happen to have more money and just want to leave some sort of legacy so you can establish a named scholarship fund. So let's say in memory of your parents, you can leave like $1 million, for example, or $100,000. You can leave this fund for culture also. It's not only for scholarship. You can just donate money to the foundation. Oh, you have a beautiful building with a nice gallery of Polish art. I know it's expensive to upkeep this building. So here is $1,000. Here is $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever. These are also the donations that we receive. And also, you can leave some money for the Kosciuszko Foundation in your testament, last will, trust, whatever. It is also possible. It can be restricted or unrestricted. So in general for the foundation, or for scholarship, or for educational purposes, or culture, for example. So these are like the main sources of our revenue.
Whether it's $50 or $50 million, you can be assured that that money will be well spent, and it'll be spent on building bridges, as Marek said, between Poland and America. And it's about helping people reclaim their identity, connect with Poland, connect with America, and benefit not just personally, but for the entire diaspora. Marek, we have about 5 minutes for questions. If you don't mind, we'll just send over to Andrea just a couple of questions. Thank you.
Thank you guys for such a great conversation. We have a couple of questions here. So tomorrow is Poland's Independence Day in the US and in Europe. Today it's in Australia. So we wanted to know, what can you tell us, Marek, about this historical day? What is the importance of this day for the Polish community in the world?
It's celebrated all over the world, and of course, the most of the celebrations are held in Poland by nature, because that was the Poland, the country of Poland, gained independence. But like we are also the organization of Polish heritage, so we try to introduce always on that day something interesting about it. And for example, as a part of celebration, we have a concert tomorrow, which is of course this year unfortunately through Zoom, but fortunately also available to everyone all over the world, not only for those living in New York. So that's a positive aspect of COVID-19 this year. So of course we are all happy that Poland regained the independence after 123 years. So, and it is widely celebrated, so our children will remember it is not easy to keep that independence, especially in this part of Europe, for our grandparents or great-grandparents. That was sometimes a really bloody fight for that for sovereign Poland.
And we should say, Marek, that we are already in the future here in Australia. It's already morning the 11th. So in case you're wondering,
I'm still a day before.
We already know what's going to happen in your world tomorrow. Okay, Andrea, next.
It's also Veterans Day in the United States. So we try to remember about the veterans in the United States, as we are also an American organization, and about the Poland's independence.
Right,
so that's
right.
about building bridges again.
It is. Andrea, next question. If we
yes, there's someone who wants to know, what are the benefits of joining the foundation?
You first of all, you have access to most of our programs. You receive our communications, and you receive our newsletters. And most of our programs are open to everyone, but also there are paid programs. Usually the ones that now we'll organize more through Zoom. During COVID, all programs were open, but probably we'll try to reduce and have some programs for our members to increase membership in the future. But we also organize programs locally. You know, before the pandemic, we had a lot of concerts in our headquarters, which are paid concerts. So those who got memberships have either better price or have a couple of free tickets during a year. But membership is not that something you receive usually something in return. Membership is about supporting the mission of the organization you love.
And I think that's a wonderful way of summarizing our discussion today. And I've said that before, I'll say it again. I am very admiring of your organization, of your leadership skills, of what you do to connect the two diasporas. I also am admiring of the knowledge. And you have such a wide range of you know, I guess historical and also, well, maybe not political, we'll stay out of politics, but a really good.
Let's stay away from politics.
Stay away from politics altogether. But it's really nice to talk to you this morning, your evening. Thank you for your time. I know that you're very busy. Behind you, we can see some of the artwork in Washington, as you mentioned, but I have visited your wonderful office in Manhattan. It's amazing. It's got a wonderful collection of art. And things go back to normal, whatever that means, whatever that is. I think people can attend eventually concerts, and they can come. You run lots of fantastic events. So I would invite everybody to support your foundation. I think it's very worthwhile, given the work you do and given the lives you change. I think let's not underestimate the fact that people remember the scholarship as an absolute highlight very good work. I'll hand over to you for the last few words, but I wanted to say thank you sincerely for your time this morning, afternoon, on the 10th, 11th, whatever it is in the world.
Okay, and of course, whoever happens to be in New York, you're more than welcome to come to the foundation. We'll show you around our beautiful collection. Or in DC, it's a little bit smaller building, but still there's a beautiful collection of Polish art worth seeing. And visit our website, join our mailing list, so we will be up to date with our right now Zoom programs available every day. And happy Independence Day wherever you are in the world, and especially to those in Australia, because that's the day.
That's it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much. Marek, have a great evening, and everyone go to the website, have a look at the fantastic programs that the foundation offers, and do join as a member. Do think about supporting this wonderful organization, and have a good day, everyone. Thank you, Marek, once again.
Have a good day. Thank you so much.